The champagne flutes shimmered under the chandelier's glow, each tiny bubble a testament to Julian's meticulously crafted image of success. 30 years old, and he'd already clawed his way to the top of the marketing ladder at Stellatech, a company whose innovative gadgets were changing the world, or at least, that's what their PR department told everyone. Julian, of course, was the architect of that PR department, the master of spin. He'd built his career on the art of appearing relentlessly busy, a whirlwind of power suits and urgent phone calls, while secretly delegating the actual work to his tirelessly efficient assistant, Beatrice. Tonight was his birthday, a lavish affair thrown in the penthouse suite of the Zenith Tower, overlooking the glittering cityscape. Julian, ever the showman, had spared no expense. He envisioned this party as his coronation, the moment he'd solidify his position as Stellatech's golden boy, the heir apparent to the CEO throne. He'd even prepared a short, self-congratulatory speech, rehearsed to perfection in front of his bathroom mirror. To success. He'd practiced, a practiced smile plastered on his face. To innovation. To me. He'd glance at his reflection, admiring the sharp cut of his suit, the gleam of his Rolex. Yes, he was ready. He was ambitious, undeniably so. The lazy part? Well, that was his little secret. Beatrice was his secret weapon, his silent partner in success. She was the engine room of his carefully constructed facade, the one who actually crafted the brilliant campaigns, wrote the compelling press releases, and managed the chaotic schedules. Julian simply took the credit, basking in the reflected glory. The party was a whirlwind of backslapping and compliments. Julian moved through the crowd like a seasoned politician, shaking hands, remembering names, thanks to Beatrice's discreetly placed notes, and effortlessly charming everyone he met. He felt invincible, on top of the world. His speech, delivered with practiced ease, was met with enthusiastic applause. He even caught the eye of Mr. Sterling, the notoriously demanding CEO of Stellatech, who offered a rare, approving nod. Impressive, Julian, Sterling had said, his voice gruff but sincere. Impressive. Julian's heart soared. This was it. His moment. He was so close he could taste it. He imagined himself in Sterling's corner office, his nameplate gleaming on the door. He'd finally achieved what he'd always wanted. He'd conquered the corporate world, all while barely lifting a finger. As the night wore on, the champagne flowed freely, and the atmosphere grew increasingly celebratory. Julian, feeling emboldened by his earlier success, decided to take a stroll on the balcony, overlooking the city lights. He needed a moment to savor his triumph, to bask in the glow of his impending promotion. He leaned against the railing, a smug smile playing on his lips. He'd done it. He'd gamed the system. He'd achieved success without breaking a sweat. He was a genius, a master manipulator. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him. He turned to see Beatrice standing there, a small, unassuming figure in a simple black dress. She looked different tonight, somehow. More confident, more assertive. He'd never really paid much attention to her before, seeing her only as a tool, an extension of his own ambition. Beatrice, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Enjoying the party? She didn't answer. She simply looked at him, her eyes strangely intense. Then, she did something completely unexpected. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, intricately designed gadget. It was one of Stellatech's latest prototypes, a device he'd barely even glanced at, too busy delegating its development to his team. "What's that?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. "This," Beatrice said, her voice surprisingly strong and steady, "is the device that will revolutionize communication. It's the product I've been working on for the past 6 months." Julian frowned. "You? Working on it? I thought my team." Beatrice cut him off. Your team took the credit, just like you took the credit for everything else I did. But I designed this. I built it. And tonight, I'm going to demonstrate it. Before Julian could react, Beatrice pressed a button on the device. A beam of light shot out, hitting the building across the street. Suddenly, a holographic image appeared in mid-air, a giant projection of Julian. But it wasn't the Julian of tonight. It was Julian from 6 months ago, berating his team, taking credit for their work, even mocking Beatrice for her lack of ambition. The holographic Julian's voice boomed across the party, amplified by some unseen technology. The music stopped. Conversations ceased. All eyes were on the projected image, and then, on the real Julian, standing on the balcony, his face pale, his smug smile replaced by a look of sheer terror. Beatrice turned to him. Her eyes now filled with a cold, hard resolve. "Happy birthday, Julian," she said, her voice laced with irony. "I believe you wanted everyone to see the real you." And then, the twist. The holographic Julian, the one berating his team, suddenly looked directly at the real Julian on the balcony. "You're fired," the projection said, its voice echoing across the stunned crowd. Julian stared, speechless, as the holographic image vanished, leaving him exposed, his carefully constructed facade shattered. He'd been so busy taking credit for Beatrice's work, he hadn't noticed she was building her own empire, piece by piece, fueled by the very ambition he'd accused her of lacking. He was ambitious. Yes, but he was also lazy, and in the end, his laziness had cost him everything. He'd underestimated Beatrice, and now, she'd not only taken his job, she'd done it in the most public, humiliating way imaginable. His birthday party had become his public execution. He was no longer the golden boy of Stellar Tech. He was a fraud, exposed, humiliated, and jobless. And Beatrice? She was the new star, the one who'd finally stepped out of the shadows and into the spotlight, taking her rightful place at the top.